The traditional Sufi mystic will tell you that the physical world is just a metaphor, a temporary bridge you have to cross to reach the ultimate reality. But a provocative May 2026 text by philosopher Mustafa Sajjad Haider argues that stepping off that cosmic bridge into the void doesn't lead to enlightenment. It leads straight to non-existence. He poses a brutal question. If our entire existence is bound to the cosmos, why do we think disconnecting from it will bring us closer to the truth? It is a total subversion of centuries of mystical tradition regarding the concepts of Mujaz, the metaphorical world, and Haqiqat, the ultimate reality.
It is a massive philosophical pivot, Thomas. To really grasp what Haider is dismantling here, we have to look at the foundational concepts he is targeting. In classical Sufism, as well as in broad swaths of Eastern and Western mysticism, there is this persistent duality. You have Mujaz, which translates roughly to metaphor, illusion, or the physical sensory universe we inhabit. And then you have Haqiqat, which is the absolute, unchanging divine reality. The famous Arabic maxim that guided mystics for centuries is al-Mujaz kantarat al-Haqiqa, meaning the metaphor is the bridge to reality. The physical world is seen merely as a training ground, a set of symbols pointing toward a higher, non-physical truth.
And that framework isn't just limited to Islamic mysticism. You see the exact same architecture in Western philosophy. Plato's allegory of the cave operates on the identical premise. The things we see, touch, and feel are just shadows on a cave wall. The real world, the world of forms, is outside the cave. The philosopher's job is to escape the physical cave to find Haqiqat. But Haider is essentially standing at the entrance of that cave and saying, wait, if you step outside this environment that sustains you, you don't become enlightened. You just die. He writes that as soon as we step outside the universe, we transition from being to non-being.
Exactly. He identifies a fatal flaw in the ascetic pursuit of transcendence.
Haider's argument is rooted in the inescapable fact that our existence is fundamentally cosmic. We are physical entities bound by time, space, and the physical laws of this universe. In Islamic philosophy, there are two distinct realms of exploration. Ser Afaki, which means exploring the universe, and Ser Anfusi, which means exploring the inner self. Historically, many mystics privilege the inner spiritual journey, attempting to detach from the Afaki, the physical cosmos, to reach a state of divine unity where the self is annihilated, often referred to as fana. But Haider challenges the logic of this annihilation as a worthwhile goal.
I want to dig into that specific phrasing he uses. He says that if we are chasing a reality that requires us to disconnect from our cosmic nature, then we must mourn our own intellect. That is a scathing critique of asceticism. He is arguing that the pursuit of a detached haqiqat is fundamentally anti-intellectual and anti-life. It forces a paradox. To know the ultimate truth, the knower must cease to exist. If the we is erased, then the truth is meaningless to us.
And that brings us to his ultimate conclusion, which flips the script entirely. Haider states that Mujaz itself is the reality, and it is the reality of reality. He is collapsing the dualism. There is no hidden, transcendent sphere that makes this world cheap or illusory. The metaphor is the substance. This aligns very closely with the sentiments of the great poet-philosopher Allama Iqbal, who also grappled with this tension. Iqbal famously wrote the line, "Kabhi I haqiqate muntazir nazar a libase majazmi," which translates to, "O awaited reality, appear in the garments of metaphor." Even Iqbal recognized that for human beings to interact with the divine, it has to be clothed in the physical, in the majaz. Haider just takes it one step further by saying the garment isn't hiding anything. The garment is the essence.
That shift has massive implications for how we live our lives. If Mujaz is the ultimate reality, then human experiences, pain, love, scientific discovery, eating a meal, building a society, are not trivial distractions from a higher spiritual plane. They are the highest spiritual plane. We often talk about grounding ourselves,
But mystics usually treat grounding as a temporary state before spiritual flight. Haider is suggesting that grounding is the entire point. By defining Mujaz as reality, does he risk stripping away the human need for deeper meaning? Without a transcendent Haqiqat, doesn't the universe just become cold, dead matter?
That is the standard defense of dualism. But I think Haider would argue the exact opposite. When you stop looking for a secret, magical realm behind the physical universe itself becomes infinitely precious. Think about modern cosmology. NASA data and astrophysics confirm that the heavy elements in our bodies, the iron in our blood, the calcium in our bones, were forged in the cores of dying stars. We are quite literally the cosmos experiencing itself. If you view that through Haider's lens, our cosmic existence isn't a demotion from some spiritual purity. It is the most profound reality imaginable. The philosopher Baruch Spinoza made a similar move in the 17th century with his concept of pantheism, arguing that God and nature are identical. When you make the physical sacred, it doesn't diminish meaning. It demands that you treat the here and now with ultimate reverence.
I see the Spinoza connection, but there is still a tension here. Traditional Sufi thinkers, like Ibn Arabi, proposed Wahdat al-Wujud, the unity of being, which suggests that there is only one true existence, which is God, and everything else is just a reflection or a shadow. In that framework, the universe doesn't have its own independent reality. It only exists because the divine light is shining on it. Haider seems to be saying that the universe has an undeniable, concrete reality of its own. If you turn off that metaphysical projector and step out of the light, you don't find the source of the light. You just find nothingness. You have hit on the core epistemological crisis that Haider is addressing. It is about the limits of human cognition. He asks, how can we find reality by disconnecting from it? Our brains, our consciousness, our language, these are all evolutionary products of this specific physical universe. To try and conceptualize a reality completely divorced from space, time, and matter is essentially trying to compute an equation using a language that doesn't exist. Immanuel Kant talked about the difference between the phenomenal world, which is how we experience things, and the noumenal world, which is the thing in itself, independent of our observation. Kant admitted we can never access the noumenal world. Haider is essentially saying that agonizing over the inaccessible noumenal world, the Haqiqat, is a waste of intellect. The phenomenal world, the Mujaz, is the only reality that has any bearing on our existence. It is a profoundly existentialist stance. It echoes Friedrich Nietzsche's concept of amor fati, the love of one's fate, and his demand that we remain faithful to the earth. Nietzsche despised any philosophy or religion that pointed toward a heavenly afterlife or a transcendent realm, because he believed it slandered the actual physical world we live in. Haider's critique of rising above the universe in search of reality shares that exact DNA. He is demanding that we stop seeking an exit strategy from the cosmos.
And the historical context of when these ideas surface is crucial. Often, periods of intense focus on the afterlife or transcendent realities coincide with periods of immense earthly suffering, political instability, or societal decay. Escapism becomes a psychological survival mechanism. When the physical world is unbearable, theologians and philosophers construct an ideal world elsewhere. But as human beings gain more agency and a deeper scientific understanding of the universe, there is a natural philosophical migration back toward the material. Haider's 2026 text reflects a modern, perhaps more scientifically grounded confidence in our place within the cosmos. We no longer need the bridge to lead somewhere else. The bridge is a destination in itself.
Let's play devil's advocate for a moment. The mystic might reply to Haider by saying, you are taking the concept of non-being too literally. When we talk about transitioning from being to non-being, we aren't talking about physical death or disappearing into a vacuum. We are talking about the death of the ego. Fana, in Sufism, is the annihilation of the self, but it is followed by baqa, which is subsistence in God. The mystic would argue that leaving the cosmic existence doesn't mean becoming nothing. It means becoming everything by merging with the infinite. That is a fair pushback, and it highlights the metaphorical nature of mystic language. However, Haider's critique remains valid if we consider the practical outcome of prioritizing Fana over the lived physical reality. Even if the non-being is an ego death, the pursuit still necessitates a turning away from the cosmos. It requires asceticism, withdrawal, and a systemic devaluation of the physical senses. Haider's argument is that our physical senses and our ego are inextricable from our cosmic existence. If you annihilate the ego, the entity that is capable of experiencing and recognizing reality is gone. Therefore, the reality you merge with is functionally useless to the human condition. It is a brilliant logical trap. To experience the ultimate truth, you must destroy the only instrument capable of experiencing it.
Which circles back perfectly to his line about mourning our own intellect. If the culmination of human wisdom is the deliberate destruction of human consciousness, the system is fundamentally flawed. It is like building a supercomputer, only to realize its ultimate program is a self-destruct sequence. By embracing Mujaz as Haqiqat, by accepting that the metaphor is the reality, we preserve the observer. We preserve the intellect. We maintain our status as cosmic participants rather than cosmic escapees. Precisely, it validates the human endeavor. All of our art, our poetry, our scientific advancements, they are no longer seen as trivial illusions that will eventually burn away in the face of divine truth. They are the intricate, vital manifestations of the only truth that exists. When you look at a painting, or when you study the structure of a cell, you aren't looking at a distraction from God. You are looking at the mechanics of reality itself. By collapsing the binary between the illusion and the truth, Haider imbues every atom of the physical universe with profound significance. It is a liberating philosophy, though I imagine it is also quite daunting. When you strip away the safety net of a transcendent reality, you are left with the immense responsibility of dealing with the physical world as it is, not as a temporary waiting room for something better. If Mujaz is Haqiqat, then the suffering in the world is real, the joy is real, and the consequences of our actions are absolute. We cannot write off environmental destruction or societal injustice as mere illusions in a temporary realm. This philosophy anchors us firmly to the consequences of our cosmic existence. If this conversation shifted how you view the physical world, send this episode to a friend who appreciates a good philosophical debate.